Nope, we're good to go. We're
Good,
recording.
awesome. Thank you. Okay, so like I said, welcome to the training to help you complete the required verification report. Couple of housekeeping items in case you've just joined. We want to make sure we issue a certificate that indicates you completed this training that will help you make sure you provide the documentation necessary to meet the professional standards training requirements for the school nutrition program. So to help us do that, please provide your full name, first and last, the name of your school, and your email address in the Zoom chat. And we'll use that information to generate an email list to which we will send a certificate for your completion of today's training. Please mute your microphone for the duration of the training presentation. We do have time at the conclusion of the presentation slides for you to ask questions and where you could unmute at that time if you'd like to ask your question that way. However, I know you might generate questions over the course of the training, and maybe you want to get those jotted down to make sure we don't forget to touch base on those at the end of the presentation. So if that's the case, please use the Zoom chat to type your question, and then Megan and I will go through those questions and provide answers at the end of the presentation. And like I said, we'll email those training certificates for 1.5 CEUs for those in attendance today. And today's training is recorded or will be recorded and then posted to the Nutrition Services website by Friday, November 7th. So if there are folks who were not able to join, who'd like to watch the training, or who, for those of you who are here and maybe want to go back to a section of today's training and listen to that component again, that will be available to access online. We will also repeat this same training, same content, all of that on Thursday, November 13th next week. That does not mean you need to plan to attend again next week. It's a repeat of the same content. We just wanted to offer it twice to help as many people join the training to be able to ask their questions and get answers as possible. And like I said, we'll have time for questions at the end of the presentation. So during today's training, we're going to cover what school types are required to complete the annual verification report. We'll touch on those important due dates and deadlines related to verification and completion of the report in the CNP system. We'll also briefly look at how to access the annual verification report within the system. And then we'll spend most of our time walking through the instructions for completing each of the 5 sections in the report. And we'll try to pay special attention to providing some of those nuanced instructions that apply to schools based on the type of school nutrition program they operate, including pricing schools, residential child care institutions or RCCIs, and then non-pricing schools that operate the Community Eligibility Provision or CEP. So those school types that are required to complete the verification report include public and non-public pricing schools, which means they utilize the traditional method of making individual student determinations for free, reduced, and paid price meals. Both public and non-public non-pricing schools that offer meals to all enrolled students at no cost utilizing the community eligibility provision. ESUs that serve meals to students during their school day at the ESU, and residential child care institutions or RCCIs. I know we covered this in the previous slide in my explanation of the types of schools, but just want to make sure I put in writing for you all the definitions or details regarding pricing versus community eligibility provision schools. So throughout the training, when we refer to pricing school buildings, those are school buildings in which students have individual eligibility determinations like free, reduced, and paid, and their meals are claimed in their individual student eligibility category based on their determined eligibility through direct certification or from an application for meal benefits that was submitted to the school district. Alternatively, community eligibility provision schools are also called non-pricing schools, and students who attend those schools are provided a no-cost meal regardless of their individual eligibility determination. So that individual student eligibility does not impact how student meals are claimed and reimbursed. And throughout the training, we do identify how to answer specific questions or sections of the verification report for pricing school buildings versus those that operate the CEP option, which we call non-pricing. The important due dates and deadlines I'm sure everyone in this Zoom training is aware of, but just want to review to make sure you have the correct information for these. October 1st is the date at which the verification pool is determined. Applications selected for verification are based on the total number of approved applications as of October 1st of the current school year. So this is standard and does not change year to year, no matter when October falls in the calendar week. October 31st, 2025, and for 2025, that is the last operating day in October, is a date for which student enrollment and school meals benefits data are reported. And you'll see that last operating day referenced throughout the sections of the verification report in the CNP system. And we'll look at that here soon. And for 2025, November 17th is the deadline for submission of the annual verification report in the CNP system. The regulations state that the report is due on November 15th annually, but November 15th in this current calendar year falls on a Saturday. Therefore, the report is due the following Monday, which is November 17th. If your school is unable to complete the required verification report in the CNP system by November 17th, you are required to notify the NDE to receive a 1-month extension on that submission deadline. And if your school needs to request that 1-month extension, you need to notify Megan or me by email. And we'll put our email addresses in the chat at the conclusion of today's training, but as you can see, they're also displayed on the slide here. Okay, we've covered some of those important basics and reminders. So now let's get into accessing the verification report and then proceeding through the sections and explaining the information that the report is collecting. You'll log into the CNP system, and as you can see in the picture displayed on this slide, you need to click Applications in the upper left, which is encircled or indicated with that yellow box. And then it will display the list of items that we see on this screenshot here, and you'll choose the third option in the items list. That is, of course, the orange square around the verification report. And the first section includes general information that is pre-populated, but you are allowed to update that information. And in fact, we need you to update that information if any of it has changed. It's pre-populated from last year's information. If there's been a change in staffing or a change in contact information, we need to make sure that we have the correct information in order to reach out to the appropriate person should we have any questions as we work through validating information that is submitted in the verification report. So give that a quick look and make sure the information is correct. As you can see on the slide, it does have a hard-coded due date of November 15th noted there. That's what every year's verification report says. But remember, this year, the due date is actually November 17th because the 15th is a Saturday. Oops. I apologize. Section 1 for pricing and non-pricing schools as well as ESUs must be completed. Column A for the number of schools or institutions in question 1-1 is populated based on the number of approved site applications in the current school year's application in the CNP system. So that information is going to be pre-populated by the system, but you will need to record the total number of students in column B for question 1-1. And as you can see in the instructions right above the questions in the text boxes, it says to report schools or institutions operating the school lunch or breakfast programs as of the last operating day in October. So the number of students reported in column B needs to reflect the number of students enrolled in your school district as of October 31st of 2025. Residential childcare institutions should not complete question 1-1 and do need to complete question 1-2. where again, column A is populated based on the number of approved site applications in the current school year's application in the CNP system. And then the person completing the report needs to fill in the value in column B, indicating the number of students attending the RCCI as of October 31st, 2025. If any RCCIs have day students, then they do need to separate out those buildings with day students and the number of daytime only students they have in those buildings from those that do not have day students and have residential students only. So depending on the type of RCCI that is operating, there are instances where they need to separate out students that live at the RCCI, or true residential students, versus those who come only during the school day. So just wanted to point that out for questions 1-2, A and B. For section 2, schools with districts with CEP or those non-pricing school buildings where students enrolled in the CEP building receive no-cost meals, which is regardless of their individual eligibility, means that those districts should not submit data in 2-1 or any of the questions for 2-2. So CEP school students do not need to be reflected in questions 2-1 or any of the questions in the 2-2 line items. Districts operating CEP in any of its buildings should report the number of buildings operating the CEP option in 2-3 and the number of students enrolled in those buildings that participate in CEP as of October 31st, 2025. In Nebraska, there are no schools that operate provision 2 or 3 for both school lunch and school breakfast. If you're a district that has buildings utilizing provision 2 to provide free breakfast to all students, you do not complete questions 2-1 or any of the items for 2-2 because your district utilizes the traditional pricing method for the school lunch program. And notice 2-1 and 2-2 indicate use of provision 2 for both meal services, and there are no schools in Nebraska that utilize provision 2 or 3 for both breakfast and lunch. Therefore, no school in Nebraska should report data or information for question 2-1 or any of the items for 2-2. Similarly, there should be no schools in Nebraska that report information for questions 2-4 or 2-5. So only districts that have CEP buildings should reflect the CEP building data in 2-3. For districts that have CEP in all school buildings or all students enrolled in the district receive no-cost meals because of CEP participation, and there are no school buildings in the district that utilize the pricing, free, reduced, and paid method, those districts need to mark the box in 3-1. As you can see from the instructions here, you're marking the box if all schools or RCCIs are not required to perform direct certification because they don't do any pricing methods. So there's no free, reduced, and paid meal pricing and claiming in a CEP school or in an RCCI that has exclusively or entirely residential students. RCCIs with day students should not mark the box. RCCIs with residential only students should mark the box in 3-1. And doing so grays out the remainder of the fields in section 3. So pricing school buildings, including ESUs, are those that have individual student eligibility and claim meals in the free, reduced, and paid price categories. Those school districts and ESUs must complete the information for questions 3-2, 3-3, both A and B, as well as 3-4. And again, this does include ESUs that provide meals that they claim for students in attendance in their buildings during those student school days. Again, this is reflective of the last day of operation in October of 2025, which was October 31st. So all of the data you're reporting for column or questions B for 3-2, 3-3, and 3-4 should reflect student totals as of October 31st, 2025. We've got a nuanced situation here that does occur in several of Nebraska's school districts, including those with both pricing and CEP school buildings. We need you to please double and triple check the accuracy of data you report in Section 3. Review your student information system or your point of sale system reporting to ensure that the CEP building students that are directly certified for SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, Medicaid free, Medicaid reduced, and migrant are reflected in the values reported in Section 3. So those districts that have a mix of CEP, non-pricing, and pricing, free, reduced, and paid buildings, don't hesitate to reach out to the NDE to have some support for ensuring that the data reported in Section 3 is correct based on the students you have in each of your pricing and non-pricing school buildings. So reporting those directly certified students or the students populating your match list means you need to identify the total number of directly certified students as of the last day of October. In this case, that would be October 31st. Remember, do not include students that are matched or directly certified with a list date after October 31st. Again, this report is reflective of values based on that October 31st date. You should also make sure you remove from this total any students who disenrolled in your district before that last operating day of October. If you had a student transfer out, you should make sure they're not reflected in the totals you report in that direct certification Section 3. And also be sure you include all students who receive extended benefits because they live with a student matched for SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, Medicaid free, or Medicaid reduced. Those students who receive extended benefits should be included and reported in Section 3 of the verification report. Let's take a look at the components of Section 3 one more time, where SNAP students are reported in question 3-2. Again, all students who are in the direct certification match list identified as a SNAP recipient, along with students who live with a child matched for SNAP, need to be reported in question 3-2. In 3-4, I'm sorry, I need to move on to here. Direct certification qualifying programs, of course, also include Medicaid free, which you see in 3-3 letter A. So students directly certified and matched on the Medicaid free program, in addition to students who live with a child matched as Medicaid free, are reported in 3-3A. And then the same would be true for students directly certified for TANF, FDPIR, those identified as eligible for free meals for migrant and foster, homeless, and runaway as well need to be reported in 3-3B. Keep in mind when reporting the total for 3-3B that the extended benefit students would be included only for those students who receive benefits extended to them because they live with another student matched for TANF or FDPIR. The other types of qualifiers you see listed in 3-3B, including migrant, foster, homeless, and runaway, should include only those students for whom you have documentation of that eligibility. You cannot extend benefits from a migrant, foster, homeless, or runaway child to any other students who may be considered in the same household or economic unit as those children. Those programs do not offer extended benefits. Only SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, and Medicaid allow that. So pay special attention to 3-3B when you're reporting the total to make sure you have not incorrectly extended a benefit and then included that in the count you provide in 3-3B. And finally, in 3-4, those students directly certified for Medicaid reduced meals are reported there, and that would also include students who live with a child directly certified for Medicaid reduced. I want to encourage you and remind you to check your math. This is a reminder of what we talked about on the previous slide. Just a couple of things to keep in mind. Obviously, you're going to check 3-3A that it includes the students directly certified for Medicaid free, plus any other students living in the same household. The same is somewhat true for 3-3B, remembering that only TANF and FDPIR reported there would also include students who receive extended benefits because they live with a TANF or FDPIR matched student, and include in that total all students who you've confirmed are foster, migrant, homeless, or runaway. Again, remembering that benefit does not extend to other children who may be in the same family, household, or economic unit. And then finally, in 3-4, you're reporting those students directly certified for Medicaid reduced and any other students living with a student matched for Medicaid reduced benefits. So we've compiled a couple of frequently asked questions regarding Section 3, and this might help answer a question you've had or one you might encounter as you complete the verification report in the coming days. But I make no claims that this is a comprehensive list of FAQs. So if we don't talk about a specific situation or circumstance you've encountered in this training, Megan and I want you to reach out to us because we can provide you with guidance and learn more about the real life work of completing the verification report. And doing that helps us provide comprehensive trainings in the future as well. So in this example, we have a school that utilizes the free, reduced, and paid meal pricing or traditional meal pricing method, and is of course required to do direct certification because of using that traditional pricing method. But that school didn't have any students matched or directly certified for meal benefits. The question therefore is, should I complete Section 3 of the report? Yes, right? Because you're a pricing school, that in theory would utilize direct certification to identify students eligible for meal benefits. Your school must not mark the box in question 3-1, leave it unchecked, and then enter or leave the 0 values for Section 3's questions if you had no students directly certified for meal benefits. That would be exceptionally rare, but that's still a required part of the report for the school district or SFA to complete. The next question is, should students who receive extended benefits be counted and included in Section 3? And we covered this in the previous slides, of course, yes. And just keep in mind that only SNAP, TANF, FDPIR, Medicaid free, and Medicaid reduced matches are extended to other children in the same household. You do not extend free meal benefits from a student matched or identified as foster, migrant, homeless, or runaway. We've got another example here where a household completed an application for meal benefits in August, which was approved for reduced price meals. So therefore, that application became part of the verification pool from which an application or more was randomly selected, and then the letter was sent to the household requesting that verifying information of the income they reported on the application for meal benefits. After the letter was sent to the household, the student appeared on the match list as Medicaid reduced. So the question becomes, what do I do? Do I follow through and require the household to submit that verifying income documentation? I'm not sure, because now I know the student, in fact, does qualify as eligible for reduced price meals. The application and approval process for Medicaid benefits requires providing income verification documentation upfront before that student even appears on the direct cert list. In this kind of situation, you can count that as a response and report the student in Section 3 for direct certification. So Like I said, you got the application, it was approved, they were selected for verification, and you notified the family of what they need to provide. In the meantime, they appeared on the direct certification list for the same or better meal benefit than the application indicated. You can count that direct certification match or identification in the match list as a response, and then also record that student according to the meal benefit in section 3. In this example, they would be reported in question 3-4 with the other Medicaid reduced students included in that total. Very similar situation here, but not quite the same. A household completed an application for meal benefits in August, which was approved for free meals. Again, this application was selected for verification. The letter was sent to the household requesting that supporting income documentation. Sometime after the letter was sent, the student appeared as Medicaid reduced on the direct certification list. What do? Do I count this as a response? Do I require the household to continue with providing me with the required information or documentation to verify the income they reported on the application? Well, in this case, the benefit on the application is greater, right? It was approved for free meals. That's a better, greater benefit than the direct certification, which was for reduced price meals. So different from the last example. In this case, you want to proceed with a verification process. If they provide you with the income documentation that verifies what they recorded on the application that confirms the benefit of free meals, you of course would not report the student in section 3 where we report direct certification values. You will report this student and what happened with that application in sections 4 and 5. If the household refuses or declines or just whatever, does not ever respond to the request to provide the information that validates or verifies the eligibility for free meals, of course, as you know from our previous verification process training, this child or household is going to be sent a notice of a change in benefits from free to reduced because the direct certification match list indicates they're reduced. And then this would be counted as a non-response in section 5 of the verification report. Section 4 is where schools that utilize the pricing program in any of their buildings, again, this is the program where students are identified individually as eligible for free, reduced, and paid price meals, and their meals are claimed in the appropriate categories, means they collect applications for meal benefits, and therefore they must complete Section 4. Again, you're reporting totals as of the last operating day in October. So questions 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3 would be ones that you report as of that last operating day. And then T1 and T2 are automatically generated by the system based on the information that you've recorded in other sections of the report. For schools that do not collect applications for meal benefits, which would include those non-pricing community eligibility or CEP districts, RCCIs that have only residential students and no day students, those kinds of schools or SFAs would enter zeros for all the fields in 4-1, 4-2, and 4-3. Schools that utilize a non-pricing option to provide all students with meals at no cost do not collect, make determinations on applications for meal benefits. Therefore, if your district offers no-cost meals through CEP to all students enrolled in the district, or if you're an RCCI that has only residential students, or all meals are provided at no cost to the children residing in your institution, these values should all be 0 because you do not distribute, collect, and make determinations on individual student applications for meal benefits. As I mentioned before, at the bottom of section 4, total 1 and total 2, T-1 and T-2 will autofill or be automatically generated by the system based on information recorded in both sections 3 and 4. So those should not be editable by you, but of course it might serve as an edit check for you to confirm that the information you've reported in both sections 3 and 4 is accurate based on the student population of your school. got a couple of frequently asked questions as it pertains to Section 4, where you're reporting applications that are approved for meal benefits and the number of students affected by those approvals. Is the verification required for your school or institution? Well, the answer to that is yes, and we covered this at the top of Section 4. Your school or institution, if your school or institution collects applications for meal benefits for free, reduced, or paid price meals, then of course it must conduct verification on those approved applications, and that was covered in the verification process training that we held earlier in October. Another question is the verification report required for, that's a repeat, I'm sorry. I just really wanted to say that. If your school or institution serves meals that are reimbursed through the school nutrition programs, then those are different questions. Is the report required? Yes, completing the report is required if you claim meals through the school nutrition program. Do I need to report applications that exceed the income guidelines, like for those that are determined to be in the paid price category? No, you're reporting in the verification report section 4 only applications that were approved for some type of meal benefit, free or reduced price meals. What if a directly certified household also submits a meal application? Well, if the application's determination was the same or less than the benefit derived from direct certification, then the student's meals should be, the student meal benefit should be reported in section 3, which includes and collects all of the data by direct certification. You would not include that application in the section 4 reporting because the greater or same benefit was confirmed or verified through the direct certification process. So that's a reminder to avoid duplicating the reporting of students in both categories. It's possible and somewhat common for a household to complete an application for meal benefits and for those same students to also appear in the direct certification list. If the benefit from the direct certification list is the same or better than what was determined by the application submitted to the school, then those students or children need to be reported in section 3 with the rest of the directly certified students. If the determination from the meal application was better than the benefit derived from direct certification, then that student would be reported in section 4, where you're sharing information about the number of students who receive free or reduced price meals because of the application they submitted to the school. So what if a directly certified household also submits a meal app? Well, we went over this a bit on the previous slide, but just want to put it in writing and reiterate for you what the response to that would be or what the appropriate action might be. If the application's determination was the same or less than the direct cert benefit, then the student's meal benefit should be reported in section 3. But if the application's determination is greater or better than what the direct certification benefit is, then the student's meal benefit should be reported in section 4, where you're reporting all students who receive a meal benefit by an application submitted to the school, and not reported in section 3. Again, remember not to duplicate students in those sections 3 and 4 when you're completing the report. The final section is section 5, and the box for question 5-1 should be marked only by residential childcare institutions that have only residential students and do not have day students, as well as districts that operate CEP in all of the buildings. In other words, all of the students enrolled in the district receive no cost meals because of the community eligibility provision. So do not mark 5-1 if you receive determined and issued meal benefits from meal applications and you have any kind of pricing building or an RCCI with day students. For question 5-2, you're going to mark the radio button that best or most accurately reflects that you completed or performed verification and it was complete. And here is how you know verification is complete. A, the household responds to your request, even if what they provided does not verify or validate the benefit that their application was approved or determined with. The fact that they've responded and provided you with the requested information does mean that that application has been verified and the process of verification on that application was completed. You can also consider verification complete if the school has attempted at least twice to receive a response from a household. So you send the initial notice letter and at least one reminder. You can also consider verification complete if you hear back from a household that says, I'm not going to provide you with what you asked for. That does count as a response and means that verification is completed as well. The NDE notifies districts required to complete standard verification, as well as the other remaining districts that have the option to complete alternate 1. So if you need to be reminded of which one was prescribed to you, you can definitely ask Megan or me. But earlier in October, late September, Megan did send notices to schools. She sent a notice to all of the school districts required to complete the standard version of verification. And then she sent a separate notice to the schools that are allowed to utilize alternate 1 if they chose to. If you're allowed to use alternate 1, it doesn't mean you had to use that option. You could have chosen to utilize the standard verification method. So please make the appropriate selection. And for Nebraska, based on the requirements for qualifying for an alternate form, as well as number of students enrolled at districts and the number of applications schools receive and make determinations on, we're able to determine that no school district in Nebraska would have completed alternate 2. So in Nebraska, we should see schools having marked only standard or alternate 1. None of you here should have a reason to mark the third radio button for alternate 2. And please refer back to Megan's notice emails if you need reminded on the type of verification you completed. For question 5-4 and 5-5, I'm sorry, for 5-4 specifically, you need to report those error-prone applications. Those are those with a monthly income reported within $100 of the income guideline for the monthly income, or an annual income reported within $1,200 of the annual income guideline. And before training is over, Megan or I will put the link to the error prone chart or error prone income chart in the chat to make sure you know where to locate that from the website. But it's been up and available and was part of the communication Megan provided to schools as they approached completing the verification process. And then for question 5-5, you're going to report the total number of applications that were selected for your verification sample, which is 3% of all the applications you received as of October 1st of 2025 that were also approved for a meal benefit, a free or reduced price meal. For proceeding through section 5, we're going to take a closer look at questions 5-6 and 5-7. There are no schools in Nebraska that conduct direct verification because we have a very robust direct certification process. So we would expect every district that submits a verification report to mark the box in 5-6. And that also means that you should have no values in 5-7. Again, we have a really robust and very reliable direct certification system. We don't have a reason to utilize direct verification, which would be like you reaching out to DHHS, which is the agency that administers SNAP, asking them about a child that was on a meal application that reported a SNAP master case number, right? If that student or child receives SNAP and has a case number, they would appear in the direct certification list. You can accept and approve and should accept and approve applications where master case numbers are listed, but may not apply, but they don't have a child directly certified for SNAP. It's definitely possible that someone in a household receives SNAP and that someone is not a child enrolled at your school. In that case, you would be reaching out to the family to get documentation of their current SNAP participation. And doing that work does not have any effect or does not need to be reflected on the answers to question 5-6 and 5-7. If you have questions about direct verification or think maybe you somehow did utilize that option or that process, please let Megan and me know, and we can make sure that that is the case or maybe isn't, and help you determine where to appropriately or correctly report students who reported a master case number on an application for meal benefits. Section 5-8 does look maybe a little overwhelming, or it did to me, at least at first. And so Megan and I are definitely here to help you troubleshoot any issues you might have with reporting in this section. But this is really an important section to get right because it's where you report the results of your verification efforts for the applications that you selected for verification. So it takes time to read through the options, both the rows and the columns here. But the total of the applications reported in all of the little a columns where we're reflecting applications is something we'll talk about here in a minute. And there are business rules within the system that account for the total number of applications you report in those little a application columns and compare it to other sections' answers as well. So we'll talk about that. Those applications that you may have verified for cause are not included in that 3% random sample that's required for verification. So you would select an application that you want to verify or need to verify for cause because you have a really good reason to believe that the information reported by the household is incorrect or inaccurate. You know there's been a change in employment, or a family that had a single parent income now has a two-parent income, and you want to, that doesn't quite match what's been placed on the meal application. You want to verify that. That would be an example of verification for cause, and that is separate from the usual and required verification process that needs to be conducted on 3% of the applications approved for free or reduced price meals. So what you report here is separate from that 3%. This is on top of any other apps you randomly selected. These are the ones you purposely selected because you have very good reason to question the information reported in that application. So I zoomed out the picture just a little bit to put the pieces and parts of most of section 5 on the screen here. And the most common error we see on the verification report is one related to the reporting of the applications that have been verified and the results of that verification. So again, question 5-5 should report the total number of applications that were selected for the verification sample. So that's the 3% sample of your approved applications, the ones approved for free or reduced price meals. Okay, that number should equal the total applications reported in all of those lowercase or small a columns in 5-8, plus the applications that you may have verified for cause, which you can see I put the purple box around at the bottom of the screen. So 5-5 should equal the total applications in all of the small a or lowercase columns for question 5-8, as well as any applications you verified for cause that were separate from the 3% sample. And after we've completed section 5, then you're all done with the verification report. The final step is to save this at the bottom, and the system will generate any applicable error messages that you're going to want to read and review. It'll direct you to the line items or questions on the report that the error message is referring to give you the opportunity to fix those mistakes. I know sometimes they can be a little bit hard to understand or difficult to resolve. And I want to reiterate again, that's why Megan and I are here. So don't hesitate to reach out to one or both of us to help resolve any errors that you need to based on what the system generates. And ideally, we would have these errors resolved in your report submitted by November 17th, but understand that some people need a little bit of extra time. So Please be sure to let us know if you need additional time and an extension of the submission deadline and any support to help you get the report completed. So we've got some time for questions now. I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And maybe if we need to refer back to one of the slides in the presentation, I'll share again then, but helps me see the questions if I don't have as much going on. Okay, Megan, you want to help identify questions we need to answer?
And it looks like there's just one so far from Jacqueline. Would this be where I would put my zero income application in the verification for cause?
I'm slow with my answer, Jackie. If you have a reason to doubt the zero income reported on the application, yes, and you did proceed with verifying that application for cause, then yes, you would report that you verified any of those applications like that in the very bottom section or question of section 5. I believe it's 5-8. I hope I answered your question, Jackie. You are not expected to verify for cause every application that reports zero income, though I understand why you might. So let me know if that didn't answer your question, Jackie, if I misunderstood you.
Jackie said, got it.
Okay, cool.
Laura wants to know, can I get copy of the slides from today's training? We will provide those on our website along with the recording of the training today. When will you send out the recording training? I was unable to log in the beginning, so sorry. It'll be out by Friday. Susan, if ESU has districts in our level 3 program that use CEP, do I count those students as free students for section 3 and 4?
That's such a good question. I know the eligibility manual discusses this. But I don't remember what it says off the top of my head. I think I could make a guess, but I don't want to guess wrong. So Susan, I know you've emailed me before asking questions. I hope this isn't one you asked before. And Susan, which ESU are you?
7.
Did you put that in 3?
7.
7, I'm sorry. Let me look in the manual. I will send that to you, and then I will add that to the slides too.
Okay, thanks.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Okay, Jamie wants to know, do I count the private schools applications in my report or do they complete their own report?
Which school district are you with, Jamie? I know your name, but I can't place your school. And are you implying that you take care of, like, the non-public students eat at your school? Yeah. St. Rose of Lima?
Crofton.
Yeah. Is St.
No,
Rose of
Crofton.
Yeah, I'm sorry. Is the non-public she's referring to St. Rose of Lima? And do you take care of meal benefit determination? Yeah, thank you. For that school. So I think the short answer is, and if we need to talk about this offline, we definitely can. The students enrolled at St. Rose of Lima whose meals are claimed by St. Rose of Lima, thank you, yeah, would be reported in their report. So any student eating meals, even though they come to your school to eat, you take care of a lot of those administrative functions for benefit issuance and whatnot. But if they're enrolled at St. Rose of Lima, they should be reported in that school's verification report, separate from your public school, Crofton Public School students in the Crofton Public Schools verification report.
Okay, so follow up to that question, Katie.
Mm-hmm.
So she has 2 families that have kids in both public and private schools. How do I count them?
Oh, that is the rest of that. You would count the students enrolled in your public school in the public schools verification report, and then the students who go to the non-public St. Rose of Lima in that school's verification report. It would still count as, like, let's pretend it's Two families that have kids. One application was submitted to you, and I know you do the determinations for both of those SFAs or school districts. And one of the older kid goes to Crofton Public and the younger kid goes to St. Rose of Lima. In section 4, you would report that application, a single app, in section 4 for Crofton, and report that same single app in section 4 for St. Rose of Lima. And each school's report gets one of those kids reported in the total students with that approved benefit as of October 31st of the current school year. Hope that makes sense. If not, we can call you or chat about it, but let me know if that isn't clear enough and you want to make some time to talk on the phone about it, Jamie.
Yeah, I might be calling you on that one.
Okay,
Since
sounds
I have
good.
two families that are application with older kids in the high school and younger ones at St. Rose.
Yeah. Okay, yeah, we can chat about that.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks, yeah. And Lisa said, oh yeah, go ahead, Megan. Let me be quiet.
Lisa just said, I don't believe the instructions for the collecting report that is posted on the website is the one as you referred to today. The one you used today has section 3A and 3B, but the one that is posted does not have those items. So I did just verify that, Lisa, and you are correct. So we will get that updated for you. Good
Yeah,
catch.
did you also notice I mentioned 3-5 in the screenshots? Like, I'm sorry, in the slides, and there's no 3-5. Yeah, I noticed that mistake when I was going through this. So it aligns, I think, with what you also noticed is on the website. So we recently requested some updates to the order and removal of at least one question in the verification report, which was successfully done, and that's great, but I didn't do the rest of the work. My apologies, and thank you for making sure we know that that needs to get fixed. What's the time? I thought we would be here till at least 10:30 because I thought it would take me a lot more time to go through the slide content. So I don't know if it's good or bad that I was fast, but I know everyone loves ending a meeting a little bit early. It gives you some time back in your day. It looks like that's what we're going to be able to do today. So thanks very much for your time, your attention, your questions. Like Megan said, we'll post this to the website by Friday and we'll send an email announcement so you can access the link to the training. And we'll also send out the certificates for those who are in attendance today. Let us know if you have questions.
And please, if there's anybody on here that has not added their name and email to the chat, if you could do so now so that we can send you those certificates, that would be great. Thanks.